Hi, the last part we're going to discuss before we do our investigation, the group investigation, is the factors that influence impression formation, impression management, and how the self-knowledge of the human is developed from social comparisons. So how we understand what we are, better or worse, in a society compared to the others, and how we can manage to control the impression we're creating to the others. And you will see that all this is a very interesting part of social behavior, and we are going to learn how to answer the questions for the exams. As you see, this is also part of the curriculum, so the psychological principles concerning the impression we create to a person when we meet it, and increasing our persuasive communication when we go for a job, for example, and how we manage this impression. It's very important in a social context, because people are really interested in the opinion the others have on them. Of course, there are two kinds of people, and we're going to discuss that in this topic. So we need to remember that this is what we're going to discuss: the social cognition, impression management, and impression formation. And of course, what we need to remember is that the impression we make to the others is not always the truth. That's why actors exist. And you can see the passion here, the happiness here, and we know from the face and from the actual muscles moving here that this is a sincere face, but this is a very well played action. This is an actor who is pretending to be angry. So people can make different impressions through the way they are behaving. Okay, and I need you to understand what the impression this person is giving you, what the impression he's giving you. You could be angry, upset, but you could just joking, and we got that picture in the moment of the joke. So think that, and we will have it later. I want you to remember that you used to form this impression the facial expressions, what we call universal facial expressions. We have done it last year, and what we really need to remember is that human brain, the serpent brain, is made to recognize these things right from the beginning. And there was an experiment, you will see it in your book when you read it, where people were trying to mix and match the facial expressions with the body language, the happy body language or relaxed body language with an angry face, and the human samples, the participants in the research, were recognizing more the body language. They could see the aggravated body language than the facial expressions. Because it's a very important subject, we're going to discuss it analytically. Now, how do we decide what people are like? You meet a person for the first time. How do you decide that? What characteristics do you assign to a person when you first meet it? You say, oh, it's good person. This girl looks great. How do you know? You don't know her soul, you don't know her brain, you don't know her thoughts. But you say, oh, she looks good, because she has made an impression to you. And I want you to go really to the meaning of the word impression. She has put the stamp, her stamp on you. And you got that impression according to what you are, what you're thinking, and what you're expecting. Remember that. We're going to discuss it later as part of projection. So, I want you to think, how much information do we need to have to determine where we like a person, or we want to get to know them better? Let's say you meet a boy for the first time. How do you know that it's not worth it to continue? Or it is worth it to continue? You're based on what? Now, what do you think this person is doing? He's a thief. But if he's a thief, how you can explain the clothes? He could be trying to break the screen, because a baby is there crying. Or it could be a branch that has fallen onto the end. He's just lifting. You don't know. But all of you have made, because of the body posture, body language, you made an idea that probably he's ready to hit it, the car. So it's very important to understand how a person is seen by others. And I want you to remember that how the person is seen by others is called impression formation. It is the person's perception. Just as we form impression to others, they also make impression on us. Okay, I want you to remember that. It's a mutual way. So if you make a movement or your facial expression that is, oh, I don't like her, the other person will perceive that, will get that, and she will act the same way. I need you to understand that impression management is very important, and it is the attempt to control what the others learn about us. So I can be a very good liar, I can lie, so I'm controlling what they know. I'm not saying everything. Remember that. And all the time we are comparing ourselves with others to measure our ability in certain areas and how we are compared to the others, superior or inferior. So this is what we're going to discuss in this subject. And there are 5 principles governing these impressions. And the first one is that the evaluations are drawn always from limited information. The impressions are partially based on stereotypes held by me, the perceiver. So if I see a dog and I'm scared of dogs, I'm not going to go and hug the dog. First impressions are initially based on outward appearance and cues. So I want you to understand that we have a first impression, but then we go to other impressions. But first impressions are very important to change, very hard to change if they're bad. First impressions form a base for subsequent impressions and judgments. So you never forget the first impression you had from someone, and you can always say, oh, and in the beginning I thought she was good, but eventually she was bad. Oh, in the beginning I thought she was bad, but now I know she is good. And I want you to remember that impressions are judgments based at a physical, sociocultural, and psychological level. Okay, so if I'm a Greek, I make good judgment for all the fellow Greeks. But if somebody has been conned by Greeks, he considers Greeks not so trustworthy. Physical, remember how we're persuaded by the attractive people or the likable to us people. And psychological levels, we are tuned to those who look like us. because we think we have common things, or same characteristics. The introverted, sometimes they like extroverted people because they don't want to be like this. But it is a psychological level. I want you to remember that these cues are based on basic communication, and it's the initial impression that enables you to answer the questions people are asking you about yourself. So when you go to a meeting for the first time and they ask you some questions and you're grumpy, you're not going to have a positive first impression. And this communication, although it is basic, can be non-verbal. So if you go to a meeting and you have your hands crossed over in front of your face, that's very important. It means that you are close to anything, but you have your hands open and you move into a different way of behaving. And verbal communication is that sometimes people disclose things about themselves, they need to answer questions, they acknowledge, confirm things, or they can be in the expression friendly or hostile, and this is how they create an impression to others. Let's start with the verbal, and I want you to remember disclosure is the most important, because people can tell us about themselves and they can lie to us about themselves, or they have to answer questions that are being asked about who we are, and the information we're going to give to them, it's based on facts, information, and they can perceive something. So verbal communication, an acknowledgement of our knowledge, or acknowledgement of what we know on things, or confirming a particular information people are asking. So it's very important that when we have a first verbal communication, we are exposed to a person and we need to confirm the idea we have created about this person. Non-verbal communication is sometimes universal and sometimes it's not. So this is common. This is common, non-verbal communication. This is a person who is really listening. But I want you to remember the signs we discussed last year, where something can be offensive in one language and not in another. So non-verbal communication could be the body posture, but this is non-verbal communication. Okay. What is impression formation? The non-verbal. We said we have physical characteristics, that non-verbal, the face and how it works and how people are recognizing a happy and smiley face, the eye contact, the facial emotions, you are angry, sad, happy, and the posture. Okay, and the movement. Also, non-verbal communication is if you have an open or closed body posture. Remember the hands, the gestures, if you give hands, or the proxemics. We're going to discuss what the proxemics are, and the paralanguage, how you intonate your words. Proxemics is also how you approach people. And we are going to create a certain impression by a person who is demonstrating some and who is not demonstrating some other non-verbal communication cues. For example, imagine somebody who is having an angry face, doesn't look us in the eye. His facial emotions show that he is upset and he is full of stress, he is sweaty, he is moving towards us, and he is having his front hand extended. What do we get? We get that he probably is ready to punch us. I want you to tell me what you get from this. So you understand that the cues, facial expression, the emotions here, the body language, they can show or make an impression to us. They can show a character or make an impression. The same here. You can pick up some non-verbal cues. You can pick up something here and something there. Are they talking? Can you pick some non-verbal cues here? Look at this and look at this. This is a portrait. A different era, but it's a portrait. And what relationship you get there? Where are they? So we make judgments consistently. And I want you to try to remember and understand the 6 basic expressions. I'm going to show you them for the video, but in the class I'm expecting you to tell me what each one is meaning. And this is the answer. So we know that this is sorrow because of the way this and this going down. We know that this is angry because the mouth is open and the eyebrows and the forehead is going up. We know that this is joy because this is going up, this is going down, and it's more relaxed. We know that this is fear because this is wide open and this is going up, and the eyes. This is the disgust. I want you to remember this in the face. I want you to remember this and this is going up. And the surprise, again, up. But the mouth is different, the eyes have a completely different posture. So there were studies, we have done this, macro expressions are there, we have done it last year. I want you to remember that this is how people are getting impressions from our appearance. And you can go, I can show you and play with this. You can select and you can, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, I lost it. I'll show you to play with this game, and you can tell me what this person is feeling, and we can play with this if you need it. And you can click a new face, and you can be able to understand how the facial expressions really impact on our impression, on the impression we formed about people and the impression we make to other people. And what we need now is to see if we can manage this impression. And how we manage this impression? By a process which is managing the way we are dressed, the words we say. So we manage our appearance, our language, the gestures, and we try to manage in a way that they correspond with the impression we want to make. If I don't really care, I don't care for the impression I'm going to make. So creating a good first impression, it's a lasting impression, it's very important. And it's everything to do in an effort to control the image that people have developed or will develop about you. Imagine that you are going to your first appointment with a boy you like, dressed badly. Is it a logical scenario? You'll never do that. So I want you to understand that although we try to do that, there is a spectrum of all this action. It's a continuum that can be from sincere to calculating. So in this continuum, you choose where you are, and you need to belong somewhere. And I want you to remember the movie The Mean Girls. Because of her need to belong, the girl has started to be calculating and started to be bad and mean herself. Although in the beginning she started from sincere. So it's very important for us to understand that we need to belong to the society, to be viewed as competent and contributing members of the society, and this is why we want to manage the impression people have for us. Now, It's very important to understand that this continuum of comparison has to do a lot with the social comparison and where we see ourselves compared to the others. So this social comparison makes us to evaluate the opinions we have about ourselves and about our ability. So if my teacher tells me, oh, you can't do maths, although I know that I can do maths, I may start doubting myself. We may figure out our strengths and weaknesses of the way others are seeing us. If somebody is, my coach is forcing me, pushing me up and up and up, I'm going to do better. This way I'm going to gain self-knowledge and I'm going to evaluate my abilities, and I'm going to learn the steps I need to do to become a little bit better every day, but better every day, which will be eventually lead me to self-actualization and make me achieving my goals. And it helped me identify my characteristics and my traits that are distinctive to me and which I can find when I compare myself with others. For example, my daughter is comparing herself to me and she says, Mom, you're extroverted, I'm introverted. But I've seen her reacting with friends. She is not introverted at all. She's choosing to be isolated, but she's not introverted at all. And I want you to remember that we compare when we are in a state of uncertainty or when we don't have an objective standard. We compare ourselves and measure ourselves compared to others. So I feel better than Marie, but worse than Sue, in my experience in teaching psychology in year 12 in Australia. So always I'm doing that when I need to have some objective standards. And this social comparison is helping me or us to build our identity. It's very, very important. That's why the children need that. What we learn with social comparison? Abilities, attitudes, okay? Mostly we compare ourselves with someone against we compare ourselves against somebody we reasonably believe that we're similar, okay? And we have something common. And I can have two kinds of comparison. I can have an upward social comparison when we compare ourselves with people who we deem to be socially better. So why we call it upward social comparison if they are better than me? Do you understand that? Because I want to go upward. They are up there and I'm inferior, but I want to go upward. I'm seeing up to them. And downward social comparison is the opposite direction, when I compare myself with people who are lower than me in something. So you can have, you're not good at maths, but you're very good at PE. So you compare yourself to a person who is very good at maths and say, oh, Marie is better than me in maths, but I'm better than George in PE. So you understand the upward and downward social comparison. And I want you to remember that very often people are doing self-monitoring, and that's an attitude that influences our behavior and are conditions that are affecting the link of attitude and behavior. Sometimes, remember the cognitive dissonance, people are trying to match their attitude with their behavior, trying to justify themselves. In this case, self-monitoring is when I monitor my behavior to match with the expected behavior of the others. So I observe, regulate and control my image, display in the public, so I can not harm myself. I want you to remember that example I gave you on purpose with my friend Ellen. the Eleni, the one who was racist, she was self-monitoring herself. Or me being a racist teacher, I have to self-monitor myself all the time and not act or let it get out of my control the image I want to give to the others. So self-monitoring is very important. I want you to understand that self-monitoring personality is very important. There are those people who are low self-monitors, and they are low self-monitors because they let themselves be what actually they are. And this means that personality-wise, they try accurately to present their beliefs and principles no matter what's the situation, so they are true. And these are low self-monitors. And you can trust these people. They are open. And they have high self-esteem because they don't care for the idea the others have on them. And those who are highly monitor themselves, they are interesting mainly for their public image. I want you to understand how the politicians are self-monitoring themselves. Sometimes, some of them, they may have double life, but their interest for their public image. So, self-monitoring is based on cues from people and situations, and I want you to understand that those who are highly self-monitors are very flexible. They adjust their behavior according to the situation, the behavior of the others. It's the when in Rome, do as Romans. And because of this flexibility and adjustability, they are unpredictable and inconsistent. Those who are low self-monitors, they act from internal states and not from the situation cues. So they act because they have certain values. They show consistency in their behavior, and it's less likely to obey to group norms or supervisor feedback, because they have high self-esteem and they know what they're doing, they believe they're doing, they are not very obedient. Okay. And the last part we're going to discuss in this video, I know it's long but I need to finish it in one off, is the self-handicapping. Self-handicapping is behavior management or impression formation management technique, where people are on purpose handicap themselves. Okay, it is an impression management technique. Self-handicapping is a strategy refer to people's engagement in behaviors that hinder the performance and try to find an excuse when they fail. It's not cognitive dissonance. I want you to remember cognitive dissonance is when they try their best, but then they fail, and then they try retrospective to find an excuse and justify why they lost the game or why the boy has dropped them. The idea with the self-handicapping is from the beginning, before the behavior. The person says, oh, I'm going to fail the test because I haven't studied. And they have studied a lot. But they are going to predict, or they're going to cover themselves in case they don't get great results. So self-handicapping is sabotaging on one person's performance, and it's a way of devising the excuse. Okay, so you have to have ready the excuse in case you fail. And I want you to understand that self-handicapping is excuse for failure. And if you succeed, you say, oh, I didn't study enough, but I did well in the test. That means, oh, I'm clever. So I want you to remember self-handicapping is a result, and it's happening from people who are low in self-esteem, and they do it to protect their self-image, to avoid failure at all costs, and it's a face-saving defense against failure. Okay, they have studied, maths, but they have self-low esteem on their ability on maths. So they try to protect their self-image, sometimes by crying. And people who are high in self-esteem, why they do that? Why they self-handicap? Because they need to enhance their self-image. They say, oh, I didn't study, but because I'm clever, I did well. They need to appear that they succeed against all the odds. And self-handicapping is an opportunity for enhancement, okay, for them. I want you to remember that. It's always one of good question. Yes, they can ask you a scenario and you have to decide if the person is handicapping themselves because they have low self-esteem, or they handicap themselves because they have high self-esteem. So I'm doing that all the time. Because I do have high self-esteem, I say, I'm fat, so what? I have huge bum, so what? Actually, it is my technique, because if I self-handicap myself and I reveal that, what else can people tell me? That you're fat. I know already, so what? I want you to understand that this is the last of this topic, and we're going again in the video, and then you're going to have exam questions, and we're going to answer them. In 2013 they had 2 questions, one in positive impressions. I remember the cues, the positive cues, and self-knowledge by social comparison to people. Okay, upward, downward, this is the words you need to remember. Okay, thank you for listening.